Welcome to EDH 502 Unit 5. In this presentation, we will talk about positive behavior supports or PBS. In a nutshell, positive behavior supports is a behavior management system used to understand what maintains an individual's challenging behavior. People's inappropriate behaviors are difficult to change because they are functional, they serve a purpose for them, and these behaviors are supported by reinforcement in the environment. In other words, positive behavior support is an empirically validated, function based approach to eliminate challenging behaviors and replace them with pro social skills. Use of PBS decreases the need for more intrusive or aversive interventions, that is, punishment or suspension, and can lead to both systematic as well as individualized change. PBS can target an individual student or an entire school, as it does not focus exclusively on the student but also includes changing the environment variables such as the physical setting, task demands, curriculum, instructional pace, and individualized reinforcement. Thus, it is successful with a wide range of students in a wide range of contexts with a wide range of behaviors. What are some challenges that we teachers face in school? When it comes to instructional time, the students could have poor attendance. Since they miss out on instruction time, they could be struggling academically. There is a lot of disruption by students in the classroom, so they're not only impacting just the target students' academics, but also impacts academic instruction for the peers and a lack of discipline. So these are some challenges that teachers face in a day-to-day life, and we are going to talk about how positive behavior supports can be implemented to decrease some of these challenges. This brings us to the question, why do we need positive behavior supports? Problem behavior is the single most common reason why students are removed from regular classrooms. Even though students have with extreme problem behaviors represent only 20% of the school enrollment, they can account for more than 50% of behavioral incidents. This takes us to our questions, which is how do schools respond? Usually, exclusion and punishment are the most common responses to conduct disorders in schools. That's the first thing that the teachers usually tend to do, whether it is intentional or unintentional, is to exclude students from the classroom activities by sending them off to the principal's office or any other room or whatever system is in place, or it is punishment by taking away recess, etc. However, research indicates that exclusion and punishment are ineffective in producing long-term reduction in behaviors. Do you look at this cartoon and tell me, is this really the solution? Probably not. Research indicates that harsh punishment and zero tolerance policies have not been effective at either improving the behavioral climate in schools or preventing students with problem behaviors from entering the juvenile justice system. 3 years after being excluded from school, almost 70% of students who have been excluded because of their challenging behaviors are found to be arrested. Failure to implement due to lack of incentives or negative attitudes towards children with challenging behaviors by administrators, policymakers, and school personnel is unacceptable. Students should not be excluded from school based activities solely upon inappropriate social behavior. Appropriate services can readily address and modify many of these behaviors, leading to more positive outcomes than simple punishment. So, what is the solution? The solution that researchers came up with in the 1990s was the development of positive behavior supports. PBS is a general term that refers to the application of applied science. It uses proactive, effective educational methods. The focus is on behavioral intervention, environmental redesign, and systems change methods to support individuals who exhibit challenging behaviors. So, what we found was that the focus was not only just on the student, the focus was on conducting a comprehensive assessment to figure out what is reinforcing or maintaining the behavior. And once the function of the behavior was figured out, the idea of PBS was to implement interventions that would remove the factors or decrease the factors that were reinforcing the challenging behaviors. In other words, we can say is PBS is based on behavioral theory. Problem behaviors continue to occur because it is consistently followed by the child getting something positive or escaping something negative. By focusing on the context and outcomes of the behavior, it is possible to determine the functions of the behavior, make the problem behavior less effective and efficient, and make the desired behavior more functional. This often involves changing systems, altering environments, and teaching new skills. And this usually we could do by conducting a functional behavioral assessment that we have already talked about. So, PBS is based on systematic manipulation of environmental factors that are influencing the behavior. This would lead to a behavior change, and appropriate and effective feedback would lead to or reinforce the positive behaviors. PBS plans are individualized and data-based and include procedures for monitoring, evaluating, and reassessing the process. PBS should be collaborative efforts among parents, school psychologists, teachers, counselors, and administrators. All partners should be committed to plan as well as its implementation. PBS is more effective when it includes the target individual as well as other significant individuals, which would be peers, teachers, parents. It also includes changing environmental variables such as the physical setting, task demands, curriculum instructional pace, individualized reinforcement. PBS is successful with a wide range of students in a wide range of contexts with a wide range of behaviors. High fidelity of implementation is required to maximize outcomes. Therefore, interventions should be applied by educators in the school environment. School psychologists are ideally qualified to conduct the FBAs, implementation of PBS plans, and train other educators, parents in behavioral intervention techniques. The PBS model is similar to the response to intervention or RTI model, also known as SRBI or scientifically research based intervention model in Connecticut. You have to remember Connecticut is the only state that refers to RTI as SRBI, so they are one and the same things. In this figure, what you actually see is a comparison between the RTI model as well as the PBS model. So when we are looking at PBS, we are going to look at the behavioral systems, and RTI is the academic system. The basic assumption of this particular model is that when students are in a general or an included classroom, 80% of the students fall in the green area, and this is where universal interventions should be put in place for all students, in all settings, and these measures are usually preventative and proactive. So you are trying to put in place the best interventions possible to make sure that your students succeed. What happens after that is, if there will always be some students who do not succeed in this particular setting in the with the universal interventions and require some targeted interventions, and so that would be 5 to 15% of your students who would move up to the second tier, which is the yellow area in this diagram. Here, these are students who are at risk. They would respond to targeted interventions in, say, small group settings and so forth. Students might have a little behavior intervention plan in place, nothing formal, but maybe the teachers reinforcing them a little more. And what we will find is that some of your students would remain in this area. That is the second tier. However, there will be 1 to 5% of your students who need intensive individualized interventions, and they will be the ones who move to the red targeted area here. And they would be students who would have individualized behavior intervention plans. They would be conducting or receiving intense interventions which would help them or prevent them from being identified or labeled with behavior issues or with academic issues. And after this, when the students are assessed, those assessments would be for special ed. So it would be after this third level that the students would be referred for special ed. So basically, with this new system, what we found was that we were providing students with a few more opportunities before they were actually labeled with a disability. Therefore, we see that positive behavior supports have a number of benefits, and all students, both with and without disabilities, can benefit from positive behavior supports. Research conducted over the past 15 years has shown that PBS is effective in promoting positive behaviors in students and schools. Use of PBS as a strategy to maintain appropriate social behavior makes schools safer. Safer schools are more effective learning environments. Schools that implement school-wide interventions also report increased time engaged in academic activities and improved academic performance. And this is schools that employ system-wide interventions for problem behavior prevention indicate reduction in office discipline referrals by 20 to 60%. Appropriately implemented PBS can lead to dramatic improvements that have long-term effects on the life cycle, functional communication skills, and problem behavior in individuals with disabilities. A review of the research on PBS effectiveness showed that there are over a 90% reduction in problem behavior in over half of the studies. The problem behavior stopped completely in over 26% of the studies. Therefore, we can say that PBS has a number of benefits. However, like any system, we do have certain things that we could improve on when it comes to the implementation of PBS. Although it is commendable that many states require functional behavioral assessments before the development of significant behavioral interventions, they often occur relatively or after the behavior has become a significant problem. That is, after a student's behavior results in multiple suspension or a drug weapon infraction. After a crisis occurs, the focus is on punishment and exclusion. Additionally, school-based interventions commonly consist of unproven strategies and are implemented by staff who lack the training to deal with problems effectively. When coordination is lacking among schools and other agencies, the primary responsibility for behavior is placed on families who receive little support. Therefore, effective implementation of PBS should include an FBA conducted when the problem behavior is first observed or as a proactive activity. The focus should be both on prevention and early intervention. The behavior support should be culturally competent and family friendly, and implementation should take place with sufficient intensity and precision to produce behavioral gains that have a significant and durable impact on the academic, social, and living options available to the students.